Courtesy's really sick.
Yeah. I feel like we should give you guys Justin, Tom's the only one here, so I feel like we should do like a big breaking news thing and make the rest of them feel like really bad. You know,
This was your chance. This
yeah.
was your opportunity.
If you don't show up, you don't get the goods. So
Well, let me just ask right off, if you don't mind. I don't actually. Whoever's there should ask first. They're there. But whatever. I just wanted to ask you about the open gangway design.
sure. And listen, since you're going, Tom, you would just let him go.
Oh, yeah.
Tom's camera's still set up. So Justin, why don't you just start?
Okay, I just was reading through the packet, obviously, and see that it seems like Metro is moving more and more towards the open gangway style. I guess there was a visit up to New York with the RAC and the AAC to sort of take a look at the open gangway style. I'm wondering sort of where Metro is on that and what kind of design you're considering and what the groups thought as well.
Yeah, so on that, we appreciate our partners up at New York City Transit hosted us. So basically went to Coney Island Yard. I think it's their largest yard. They're testing two different types of open gangway design right now, and it was a chance for us to have our RAC and AAC go up and physically touch and feel how these open gangway trains work. The AAC for a long, long time has actually called on Metro, including formally, has asked for Metro to do this. A lot of members of the RAC were naturally thinking this was a good idea. A few were just kind of, I think, trying to understand it a little bit more, had some other kind of thinking through different, like from a safety or other, more of a topic, how does this work? So it was good to hear from people in New York that have to run, those systems and their design considerations and get real life feedback from our from our RAC and AAC. So what I think we are, I would say, moving towards that direction. We're kind of finalizing some design stuff right now with Hitachi. Look forward to trying to get that wrapped up, both on the material of the shell of the vehicle and also kind of this open gangway. Open gangway is kind of world-class standard almost everywhere now. That's what's happening. We also are trying to balance that with our yards and maintenance facilities, which are not designed for an 8-car train set to go in, because that means the whole vehicle has to lift. So those would be very, very expensive kind of design changes at our facilities, including a couple that probably don't even have the space. So right now we're probably more looking at a pair and because we run pairs already, and so how those pairs would be married together as an open gangway. So we may end up with, if you will, four. If we run a four, like an 8-car train, we would run four open gangway deuces or doubles, and then if we ran a 6, you would run 3. And part of this is to give us that flexibility too between 6 and 8-car train sets, which unfortunately we do not have on the 7000s. Part of this too is to also think through the door alignment on the 8Ks so they mirror the 7Ks. So we have consistency on people from a safety and customer awareness of where doors would be, and eventual integration to communications-based train control. And if we move to platform screen doors, you have to have all your doors and your systems work a certain way. So we're trying to get us into a position where we can long-term have the larger modernization.
And these cars will have both back-to-back seats as well as along the walls.
The idea is to have a mix of seats. So be more horizontal seating than what we currently operate, but definitely still a mix. And the idea is it provides more space for things like bikes and luggage or strollers or individuals with a wheel mobility device. So just trying to serve, I think the chair said this really well. Metro has to evolve and change to the variety of customers that we need to serve across all hours and all days of the week. And this train design will do that for the future.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Feel better?
Thank you.
Yeah. Tom?
I've got several questions, and I'll just take over for all the others who aren't here.
But you're not sharing.
Yeah. With the red line being helped this week, I was wondering what are the next lines you're looking at for help? I would imagine blue, orange, or silver, but what is on your radar screen next for as you get more 7000s back?
Yeah, well, it's 7,000 in staffing. So we're not that far from, we're kind of at this balance now where staffing needs are probably equal or a little bit more the actual need than trains. We're right in that kind of middle area on that. So we obviously need to get to the next interval of 30-day measurement on the 7Ks, or we will not be able to deliver the service that people know that we need to do. So we're working with the WMSC on that, and we're about halfway through the next version of measurement data process. So we're working with them on that, and then obviously we got to get into our repressing of our wheels so we can actually get past the actual mitigation and move into regular fleet management. On the people side, we have a lot of people that are in training and on certification, but obviously it's a pretty long training process, and they get pulled from other parts of the organization. So working through all of that. Yellow, the idea is we got to get yellow to be consistent at the same as green, which is 8 minutes all day like green. So that is one of the things we're definitely looking to get resolved. We just couldn't do that for the opening, but so it's like I think it's 9:30 p.m. and on. It gets off the 8-minute interval, so we want to solve that. And then it's obviously orange, blue, and silver are where we're trying to look at. So probably we're doing everything we can towards the end of June, looking because we got these construction projects, and as we shut down, it's not just where the shutdown is. Certain shutdowns isolate our yards. So a good example is when we do the one at East Falls in Vienna, that area and that junction, which is this old rail we have to do, we are isolating West Falls Yard and Dulles Yard from the rest of the network. So it really limits our ability to move trains, and therefore they're kind of caught in one area because we don't have a yard space to move everything out of Dulles and put it somewhere else, obviously, right? So there'll be a variety of service patterns that we're going to announce with those kind of closures and mitigations. And then the goal is to how to get more service on orange, blue, and silver. So you may recall in the budget, the board approved a budget for the orange line to get down to 7.5 minutes on peak. So orange is obviously the one that probably will move before blue and silver, but we want to move all three of those lines.
You mentioned the work this summer. I wanted to ask about that too. I looked in our archives. We warned people in January, but obviously it's time to warn people again with it starting tomorrow, the summer work. I think the number one question we've gotten when we've done stories about it is, and I know I've asked you this before, but just to remind people, every station affected this summer was already shut down within the last few years. So the number one question we get is, why wasn't this work done earlier? What do you want to tell the customers who might be frustrated they have to deal with this again?
Yeah, I think that's, I'm frustrated that we have to do shutdowns, right? I'm on the service every day. We're trying to get the ridership back. We're trying to help stimulate the regional economy. So no one wants to do a shutdown, right? Just like this yellow line was a really significant issue. So on this orange line one that we're starting Friday, I mean, we have to work with our power companies, and they control when we can and can't move utility lines, and you can't do it in the summer and you can't do it in the winter because we have to make sure we have a reliable grid for people to have energy in their homes, right? So there's a very limited window, and the shutdown last year didn't align for that. Now this one's a single tracking. It's 10 days, and those people will have not great service, but we have some bus as well. So we're trying to minimize it and just kind of get it over with. And then that end is kind of looked after. The yellow line now is kind of looked after for a period of time. The one that's towards Vienna, East Falls, that area, I could see why people are frustrated because the platform work was done a few years ago. Part of the challenge with a little bit, I think, is these projects take forever to put together as a package, build a design, then procurement, and up until 2018, we didn't even have a predictable funding source. So when Safe Track started, basically 2018-ish, 17, 18, right?
18.
That was like, okay, there's money. Let's get the most critical safety work done that was evident and can kind of there was a sense of urgency around getting certain things done that were pretty bad. That doesn't allow you to solve all of the things that take longer to actually plan. So the Greenbelt to Fort Totten, the piece that we're doing this summer, is all about fiber work and our resiliency on our radio system and upgrading a lot of other stuff. That money and design was not in play when the other part happened. That would maybe like 2 years ago. So if this, I think, is why it's really important. The chair and I've been saying this publicly, which is the predictability of funding allows us to actually deliver construction projects with more predictability and operations with more predictability. So when we play Band-Aid with the funding, we have to play a little Band-Aid and be reactive on when we can do these things. So I'd like us to be, thinking out 1, 3, 5, 10 years. And right now, we're thinking out the next 4 or 5, but after that, our capital money is going to be all expired or used up at that point. So then how are we gonna be thinking about what we have to do 10, 12 years from now? And to your point, the customers wanna see us all integrated and have the least amount of disruption. So, Chair, I'm sure you wanna add something.
Yeah,
to
and
that.
Tom, big picture, back in 18, or prior to 18, there was a list, quite a long list, and the general manager's right. They started out with the critical items, and then there are ones that weren't as red, and then there's ones that were pink, and, so they've worked their way down the list. There's a lot of coordination that goes on. But, the funding piece is really important. And, it points back to, and we never want to be in this position again, of the agency and the board sort of neglecting, that side of the business and, diverting money for other purposes and away from capital. It's an easy sort of thing
Yep.
to do. So there was a long period of time of some, neglect. I mean, they were fixing things, but there wasn't any predictability. There wasn't any kind of established maintenance schedule and program. So we've changed that now. We've, again, started at the very top, the most critical. They've been working their way down, and, it's where we are.
Yeah.
We've basically had in some areas, rebuild the system in
Yeah.
a lot of ways.
I think we forget how, it's not a brand new system anymore, right? We people, I lived in Boston and worked in the Boston system for a long time, and it's pretty obvious when everyone goes, well, that's really old, or New York, or Philly, right? But ours is not brand new. So the Silverline extension is new, right? But everything else is actually, so if you had a house for 30 years, you're probably gonna do some renovation on a 30-year house, right? But in 35 years, you're still gonna do stuff. In 40 years, so this stuff will never end. The more predictability we have, and the more we integrate modernization into that. So a good example, this Green Line stuff we're doing, Fort Totten to Greenbelt, is mostly, we're gonna add in a bunch of other stuff, but the main focus is running fiber and communication backbone. One of the benefits of that is we're working on a project called Power Relay, our Power Relay project. So we're gonna have more remote control ability to quickly turn off power, which is gonna allow our crews, when it's done, to get on at night and get off first thing in the morning much faster and safer. So we're gonna actually get more window for maintenance overnight. So we don't have to shut down that section this summer, but then we're never gonna get any efficiencies on our night work. So it's kind of like pulling the Band-Aid off, because we know once it's done, we're gonna get a lot better outcomes, and then we will disrupt people a lot less long-term.
Well, that's what I always said, and plus what complicates it, we don't have that third rail. So there's no
Third
other
track,
way,
yeah.
or third track, sorry, third track. So there's no other way to do it than to shut down,
Yeah.
in a lot of areas.
And part of it's
to do these
design.
projects.
But
Yeah,
I'll just be honest,
yeah.
part of the
Yeah.
design here, it was built beautiful, but it wasn't necessarily, there's parts of the system that were built with a lot of long-term maintenance and design. So the Greenbelt to Fort Totten section, the cables are in the middle of the right-of-way, which means we gotta shut down both sides to run cable. Most transit agencies would run your cable on the outside of a track, so you could work on this side and not have to shut down that side. Purposely or not purposely, the design was, let's put it in the middle, because it looks better. And so we have to live with that forever. So let's get it done right, and then we have to touch it for another 30, 40 years.
And I know the board is really pleased that the staff is coordinating these projects now. There's a lot of communication and coordination going on now. And we're executing on what's actually budgeted.
Mm.
In the past, that necessarily wasn't the case,
Yeah,
so-
biggest budgeted and executed capital year ever
Yeah.
this year.
So, doing that is a huge accomplishment, and executing them, well and on time, and, again, really addressing these big important issues.
One last question I had just was for an update on the Faravision. Where are we at, making the modifications at Fort Totten? Are they completely done now? And then when did you begin installing them at some of those 10 other first station, or 9 other first stations?
Yeah, so we'll start this, we said those 10 will be done by the end of the summer. The team tells me we should be done more or less at the end of the summer on those 10. They're in production right now. So Fort Totten, we actually believe that we can make those panels a little higher now. And we believe that the hinges and the motors can be stronger. So that whole process is kind of worked its way out. They finalized some testing. Now we are I guess they're working through the production stuff. Like everything, it's almost impossible to get anything delivered and built and delivered anywhere easily anymore. But we're waiting on parts and parts and pieces on that, and then they're going to go in earnest as soon as we get them. So they're already starting to do individual, like kind of the steel work around different places. But the ones you see at Fort Totten have definitely noticeably cut down on fare evasion. But the fact that we can go a little higher and they're going to be stronger, we think that will even further reduce it. And then that's the kind of final design. So, the team did a really good job. We tested, found some issues, tested again, found some issues, tested again, and then we have our lab that worked through some stuff as well. So, going to be perfect? No, but it's going to be obviously significantly better than we have out there.
And that 15-month original timeline for every station still seems realistic?
That team tells me we're again, long as we can get the supply, right? So that's based on what we believe the supply chain is. And then if supply chain gets better, we hope to deliver it even faster. Yeah. Justin, do you have any other questions?
No, I don't, Randy. Thank you so much.
Okay, feel better.
Thanks.
Okay, you good, Tom?
Yeah, thank you both very
Okay.
much. Appreciate it.
Okay, thanks. See you, Justin.